Today on Notsam Wrestling is the WrestleMania 42 main event completely in flux. What's going on with Powerhouse, Hobbs? TNA debuts on AMC. Gunther taps out and so much more. This is Notsam Wrestling. Welcome to Notsam Wrestling. Big stuff going on. We got to talk about Raw. We got to talk about SmackDown. We got to talk about the TNA. It's so much. Pay-per-views, AAA. Oh, I got to remind myself to talk about AAA. There were a couple of big moments on AAA over the weekend. But as I said, welcome to Notsam Wrestling. Couple show updates before we get charged up, because I will forget otherwise. There's a big week that we will be back to discuss Unreal. Unreal Season 2 comes out on Tuesday. And on Tuesday, we're going to drop a bonus podcast going over the entire Season 2. It will be riddled with spoilers. So if you want to get in on a conversation about Unreal Season 2 that is full of spoilers, that show will be up. But the intention is for the show to be up and ready to go as soon as you're done with it. So if you watch, as soon as that show drops, if you go through every episode, the show hopefully will already be up, ready to kind of decompress and get our feelings out about Unreal Season 2. The Sam Roberts WWE action figure that Mattel has put out, the Build-A-Figure that is part of the WrestleMania 42 Elite Series. It'll be out in stores at some point. Maybe it's going to start popping up very, very soon. It was on Ringside Collectibles. I think that it's sold out, but it's up on Amazon now. You buy all four figures, Jake the Snake, John Cena, Seth Rollins, and Stardust, and you get all the pieces that you need to make your very own Sam Roberts action figure. The figures are up on Amazon. If you go to notsam.com, there's an action figure link now, and it has links to the Amazon listing for all four of those figures. So if you want a Sam figure and you haven't been able to get one yet, those are all up there. The links are at notsam.com. Now, the whole wrestling world is talking, at least on the internet. When I say the wrestling world, I mean us hardcores. But you got to be a hardcore if you're listening to Notsam Wrestling. You know what I mean? Or at least you're on your way. I feel like that's a lot of people. A lot of people that listen to Notsam Wrestling are either hardcores or people that are slowly drifting into the world of being a hardcore pro wrestling fan. But a lot of people online are talking about what is going on with the main event of WrestleMania. Of course, a week ago, the whole title picture became completely in flux after Drew McIntyre won the 3 Stages of Hell match against Cody Rhodes on SmackDown. And at first, many were assuming that Drew would hold the title for a short period of time, and then sometime before WrestleMania, he would drop that championship, and it would still be Cody and potentially Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns. My WWE championship match still remains Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns. But depending on what report you read, there are some insider reports that will tell you Cody and Roman is still on. There are some insider reports that will tell you the plan right now is for Roman Reigns to win that title from Drew McIntyre before WrestleMania. And there are some insider reports that will tell you that the whole plan for WrestleMania has been torn up, and everything and the big matches for this year's WrestleMania have been completely reconfigured after this Drew McIntyre title win. And all of them may be true. None of them may be true. A little bit of each may be true. But either way, it's utterly fascinating. And also, this information may be getting out there knowingly. You know, that narrative of the creative pivot is always really, really fun around WrestleMania time. If people are seeing what's going on as a creative pivot, I mean, that harkens back to WrestleMania 40 and one of the biggest bills to a WrestleMania in recent at all memory, if not of all time, which was, you know, Cody versus Roman 2 and the complicated road that it took to actually get there, when in reality, you would think Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns, the rematch at WrestleMania 40, would be the most predictable main event that WrestleMania could possibly have. Literally, the minute the referee's hand hit the mat at WrestleMania 39 to count 3, and Roman Reigns beat Cody Rhodes, the conversation started about Cody Rhodes getting a rematch at WrestleMania 40. But because the story was told involving a creative pivot, and the final boss came back and the whole thing happened. It was just utterly intriguing from beginning to end. And maybe we're seeing a little bit more of that. That there are pivots happening and purposefully happening to bring us back to that space. Who knows? But the fact is that we've got quite a bit to talk about, and I don't think any of us really know exactly where this title picture is going to land anytime soon, which is a really, really good thing. On SmackDown, Drew McIntyre came out and he was just drinking in the fact that he was the WWE champion. Bagpipes in London ushered him to the ring as he just really took pride and ownership of that WWE championship, and then informed the audience that whether they cheered him or not, and they were cheering him, and he was accepting it at first, but then very quickly reminded them, I did this without you. And he even acknowledged the fact that it was a pro wrestling trope, but that in his case, he meant it because of everything that he had to go through, because of watching fans cheer for Roman Reigns and watching fans cheer for Jey Uso and CM Punk and all of this, that he has no allegiance to the fans anymore. Which, again, like everything that character does, like everything Drew McIntyre does, hero or villain, there's logic behind it. There's a sound truth to what he's saying. So he gets out there and he says that, look, I'm going to explain what was in the contract for this 3 Stages of Hell match because a lot of Americans are illiterate, which I thought was unnecessary. Some are, but not a lot, I don't think. I think most aren't. I guess some might be. But he said that there was no rematch, that in the contract there was no rematch, which, of course, around this time of year leads you to believe that Cody is going to find other means that would force him to get the rematch. But it does kind of clarify why the plan is going forward with Saturday night's main event, why Cody won't be the guy at the Royal Rumble to get the title shot, why Cody's not just going to wait and try to get a title shot at Elimination Chamber. There is no rematch clause in that 3 Stages of Hell contract. So as soon as he gets out of his mouth that there's no rematch clause, Randy Orton comes out. Now, Randy had set this up saying from when he came back on SmackDown, I think 2 weeks ago, he told Cody that when Cody was done with Drew, that he'd be there and he'd be coming for the WWE Championship. So that wasn't about Cody, that was about the title. And now Drew holds the title, so Randy Orton comes out. And look, I'm always searching for an angle that's going to lead us to a Cody Rhodes Randy Orton match. That's what I want. That's what I want to see. I think Randy turning heel and Cody being a babyface, it's just, I feel like it's one of those stories we've been waiting years now for. And when it hits, it's going to hit. And so anytime Randy does anything that could possibly be construed as not being a great dude, I go, here we go. Randy coming out the minute Drew says that Cody's not getting a rematch and trying to grab that match for himself. That's something Cody could take umbrage with, right? If you wanted to go in that direction, that's something Cody could put out as Randy being very selfish, as Randy not being a good friend. Now, Randy could, of course, justify his actions, but still, there's something there. So Randy interrupts Drew. And Randy talks to Drew briefly about his championship aspirations. And as he's talking about those championship aspirations, before Drew McIntyre gets a chance to really kind of dig his teeth into it, Fatu! Here comes Jacob Fatu. I'm so glad he's back. Jacob Fatu comes right to the ring, just looking like a straight up gangster, just ready to tear someone limb from limb. And he does none of the talking. No microphone is needed. He goes right out there and he attacks Drew McIntyre the same way that he attacked him in the cage match. They have not specifically said that Drew McIntyre, busted Jacob Fatu's teeth out of his mouth. And Drew said that he didn't. And Drew usually doesn't lie. But also, once we get to the bottom of that, I think Drew's character is able to justify lying in certain instances. I don't see a world where we find out that Cody Rhodes was the one who busted Jacob Fatu's teeth out of his mouth. I mean, it's possible, but like that dramatic of a heel turn, I just don't think that's how you do it with Cody. And I don't think he's turning heel anytime soon. And I don't think he should. As I've said, I feel like for months and years now on Notsam Wrestling. But Jacob goes right after Drew. Drew is able to escape, runs off. Jacob follows him. Randy Orton is in the ring. Miz sneaks up behind. Skull-crushing finale. Go to break, and we get into Miz versus Randy Orton. And I love that all these elements are mixing together, that all these stories are being told simultaneously, that all these stories are also connected, that Randy and Miz is connected to Drew, who's connected to Jacob, who's connected to Cody. Like, it's all, I love the chaos of it. I don't like watching wrestling and feel like I'm watching a well-structured, well-organized show that is segmented to tell different stories at different times. I feel like if you want that suspension of disbelief to get lost, there have to be, quite frankly, a lot of times where these stories are intersecting, where the idea is that these stories intersect because they all share a locker room. They all share that backstage area. And this story does not turn off when those guys go backstage. Because if we live in a reality when it does, then we can't suspend disbelief when they're in front of us. So I love that they all get interconnected. I love that, Jacob's going after Drew, even though Jacob and Cody also put hands on each other in that 3 Stages of Hell match. And really, Jacob cost Cody the WWE Championship, whether he meant to or not. And I felt like on SmackDown, we were able to advance the stories of all people involved without ever actually getting the answers to those questions. We don't know what Jacob's problem with Drew is. We don't know if Drew knocked out Jacob's teeth. We don't know if Jacob has a problem with Cody Rhodes or if it was wrong place, wrong time. We don't know how Jacob feels about costing Cody the championship. All of these questions are still up in the air, yet the story has progressed. Because we'll get into Miz and Randy and all the qualifying matches in a few minutes. But later on in the night, Cody Rhodes comes out. And Cody Rhodes first declares for the Royal Rumble. In 2026, with less than 2 weeks before the Royal Rumble. And I would imagine we'll have a lot more people declaring this week. But our first entrant, the one entrant at the time of this recording that we know is in the Royal Rumble, is Cody Rhodes. Now, right there, I don't think anybody would have had that, in December, a couple of weeks ago. I don't think anybody would have said Cody Rhodes is going to be in the Rumble and Cody Rhodes might win the Royal Rumble. But the minute Cody Rhodes is in a Royal Rumble, Cody Rhodes might win the Royal Rumble. The modern Cody Rhodes has never lost a Royal Rumble. That might be the even more impressive record. Not only did he go back-to-back, winning Royal Rumbles, but since his return at WrestleMania 38, he's won every Royal Rumble that he's ever been in. Now he's re-entering the Royal Rumble as a different person. He's re-entering the Royal Rumble as somebody who has finished the story, of somebody who has held the WWE Championship twice. He's not entering the Royal Rumble as somebody who is fighting to prove that he is the guy. He is entering the Royal Rumble as the guy. And I think the idea that Cody winning is not on everyone's list as at least a possibility is ridiculous. I was talking last week about the idea of Braun Breaker winning the Royal Rumble and that being my pick and where it could go. But now you've got Braun Breaker as a possibility. Now you've got Cody Rhodes as a possibility. I mean, who knows if Jacob Fatu is going to enter the Royal Rumble. I think he's a big possibility, especially if you believe these rumors about potentially Drew carrying the title all the way to WrestleMania, potentially the Cody Rhodes, Drew McIntyre story being the story that main events one of the nights of WrestleMania. Potentially Cody versus Drew, potentially Cody versus Drew versus Jacob. If you're looking at a triple threat involving Jacob, do you have Jacob Fatu shock the world, and win the Royal Rumble. And by the way, back-to-back bloodline winners of the Royal Rumble between Jey Uso and Jacob Fatu. Or do you have Braun Breaker win? Or do you have Cody Rhodes win? Or is Brock Lesnar coming back and turning this whole thing on its head and Brock Lesnar wins? Or is Roman Reigns coming back and turning this whole thing on its head and Roman Reigns wins? Or is there somebody completely different who's going to win this thing? Is Seth Rollins going to come back and win this thing? You know, I mean, is Matt Cardona going to win this thing? You know, I'm ready to hear any and all options, and that's not something that we get every year. 2 weeks out from the Royal Rumble, most years, we do not have 5 potential winners. Many years, we do not have 2 potential winners. More often than not, you go into the Royal Rumble with this is the guy that will probably win. And that's why moments like, what was it, 2017, maybe 2018, and it might have been the 2018 Royal Rumble. It was the one before WrestleMania 34. So, yeah, I want to say it was 2018. The 2018 Royal Rumble that Shinsuke won. That was one nobody saw coming. But more often than not, like, you do see him coming. This one, there are a million different directions that it could go in. And with only 2 weeks left, I feel like we're going to be in a position where by the time we get to the Rumble, we're still going to have that feeling. And there's going to be a lot to discuss after the Rumble match, because that's the first time you're really going to start to see, like, okay, this is what WrestleMania may actually look like. But the fact that in January, going into WrestleMania, there's still questions about whether or not the champion will even still be the champion at Mania. We haven't had that since pre-Bloodline. We haven't had that since, you know, going back to it's been at least 7 years, which is crazy. But it's been, at minimum, I mean, I guess, you know, Goldberg wasn't going to lose the title before going into WrestleMania, right? And even if it's Goldberg, that's pre-Bloodline, that's 36. We're going into 42. So that's 6 years right there. It's been 6 or 7 years, minimum, maybe more. Because there was no WrestleMania where we thought Roman was going to lose the title before Mania. We didn't think Cody was going to lose the title before Mania. You know, and so to have this now is kind of a really remarkable thing. And we're not even done with how SmackDown went, because not only did Cody Rhodes declare himself as the first participant in this year's Royal Rumble, but he also turned around and called out Jacob Fatu. And I was writing in my notebook, writing my little things going on the show. And I said, interesting that Cody's not even addressing Jacob. But then he addressed Jacob because he said, look, I know I don't get a rematch, so I'm going to earn it. I'm going to win the Royal Rumble. And then he called out Jacob Fatu. He said, the Royal Rumble is the Royal Rumble. I'll get my match when I get my match. But for now, I'm calling out Jacob Fatu. And we can either do it here or we can do it back there. But the next time I see you, he basically, without saying these words, informed Jacob Fatu that it was on site. Now we get to later in the show. And this is how you have to program these 3-hour shows. There's no reason that, okay, Cody came out for a segment. That's the Cody segment. Now we're going to move on. Let these stories exist throughout the 3 hours. Yes, Jacob came out and attacked Drew early in the show. There's no reason why Jacob shouldn't be in multiple segments. There's no reason why your popular stars on long shows should not be in multiple segments. I love when they are, because it makes it feel unpredictable. It makes it feel like you have to keep watching. If you're really watching for the Cody Rhodes moment, tell me that there may be more Cody, there may be more Jacob, there may be more Drew. You know, and that way I'm going to keep watching. So after Cody does his thing and he gets back there and there's no response from Jacob Fatu at first, we see more of the qualifying matches, the Cardona, the Trick. We'll get into all of it. Kit Wilson comes out. Bam, 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 Kit Wilson. I mean, just the best. I even, to the point, I go like, man, I felt bad for Matt Cardona, because I'm like, I don't know if I want to be a babyface getting attacked by Kit Wilson right now, especially after the WWE YouTube channel aired that 4-hour block of just Kit Wilson's entrance. And it was unbelievable. It was fantastic. He's the best. Kit Wilson is my favorite. And then when he gets out there and he's like acting like a bad guy, I'm like, bro, I don't see you as that. Now, I think other people might. And I'm not saying to turn him or anything like that, but it wouldn't be that tough. If he just decided that a bad guy was toxic, we could still keep the same thing going on. Dude, you talk about somebody that is making the most of this. Did you see the Kit Wilson social post where he posted the word toxic, but he spelled it Toxi? And then it was Jacob Fatu curving his body, doing the moonsault that was landing on Kit, and that was the C in toxic. It was amazing, dude. It was amazing. He's doing everything right. But so Kit Wilson, he comes out as Trick is leaving. He walks right by Trick Williams. And then he attacks Matt Cardona. So I guess going forward, maybe we're going to see more from Kit Wilson and Matt Cardona. Should be a rivalry that Matt Cardona wins, I would think. And then as he's beating up Matt Cardona, it disposes of him, gets in the ring. He's yelling at everybody for being toxic. Out of nowhere, after Trick beats Cardona, Kit attacks Cardona. Kit takes the mic. Here comes Jacob Fatu. Jacob Fatu now attacks Kit, leaves him laying, and picks up the microphone, mentioning that Cody Rhodes had wanted to say something and suggesting that Cody Rhodes might want to bring his punk ass out to the ring. And bro, like, the same Jacob I saw last week, the same Jacob I saw this week, this reminds me of that first Jacob that showed up. This reminds me of the Jacob that Paul Heyman said we cannot control. This is not babyface Jacob that we saw in a rivalry with Solo Sikoa. That was like, he was dangerous, but he was our dangerous friend. He's not going to bother us. No. This is going back to how Jacob first came out on SmackDown. When it was like Paul Heyman was explaining that we all knew about Jacob and we all knew what he was capable of, but Roman kept him out of the bloodline because he was so terrifying, because he couldn't be controlled, because he wasn't fit to exist in polite society. I want a Jacob Fatu on television that I believe is not fit to exist in public society. I want a Jacob Fatu that is going to take and take and take and let someone try to stop him, because I believe that Jacob Fatu. And that's a character that many could try to pull off, but most would not be believed. And Jacob Fatu, in a world of Drew McIntyres and Cody Rhodes, I believe is somebody that you don't want to mess with, is somebody that is going to take what he wants. If Jacob Fatu does not take what you have, it's because he doesn't want it. If he wants it and you have it, he's already got it. He's taken it from you, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's the Jacob Fatu that I want, that if you call him out, he's immediately responding. When Cody called him out and Jacob didn't come out, I was like, I don't know about, and then the fact that we get it later in the show, involve Cardona, involve Kit, and he calls out Cody, and we get that brawl with Cody. And again, it's multiple elements. We got something. It lends credibility to Jacob Fatu. It gives Cody something to do, and the announcement is made for Saturday night's main event, which we'll get into. But I think interest is effectively being built in Jacob, in Cody, in Drew. I think having Drew not really make it about Jacob or Cody, but make it about being the champion, creates a bigger thing, creates a thing that involves the rest of the roster. Not just, it involves everybody, not just this story. The title is not isolated to this story. The title, as I said last week, is in general population, where everybody is going after it, and that's what makes it interesting. That's what makes it big. Guys, we're going to get right back to it, but today, Notsam Wrestling is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies just to see if you could save some cash? Well, Progressive, they make it easy. All you have to do is drop in some details about yourself with Progressive to see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process, it takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds of dollars more in your pocket. It's a fabulous value with the time proposition. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states. You know, we got the right away. I mean, you know, we were talking about how Royal Rumble is only 2 weeks away. Saturday night's main event is this Saturday. And up until SmackDown, I guess Raw, we got a match for Saturday night's main event, but we got 3 matches. We got a pretty significant card for Saturday night's main event this Saturday in Montreal. So on Raw, we found out that Liv Morgan and Roxanne Perez are getting a tag team championship match with Rhea Ripley and Io Sky. There's a million different ways this could go. This could lead to the Judgment Day split. This could lead to whatever we're going to get with Raquel and Liv Morgan. This could lead to Roxanne turning on Liv. This could lead to a breakup between Rhea and Io. I mean, there are so many different elements here. I think that Rhea, Io, and Liv Morgan, all 3, need very significant roles at WrestleMania this year. And I don't think any of those 3, I don't think Rhea Ripley and Io Sky, they could be, but I don't think they're going to be defending tag team champions at WrestleMania. They should be in big, massive main event matches at WrestleMania. And so should Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan is my early pick for winning the Women's Royal Rumble match. You know what I mean? I think that this is the year to do it and to get Liv Morgan in that spot. And, you know, maybe you end up with Raquel. See, that's the thing. Like, if Raquel is able to get the Women's World Championship from Stephanie Vaquer, then the thought, of course, goes to Liv Morgan versus Raquel. And I think that there's a good chance that that's your women's world title match and that Raquel, I mean, and there's a lot that could happen there, but I think you end up getting that Liv Morgan title win at that point. But at the same time, it's hard for me to believe, and I would love to see Bianca Belair return if that's possible. I think that Bianca Belair is the perfect opponent for Jade Cargill. But the idea of women's championship matches happening and Rhea Ripley and Io Sky not being front and center for it, especially Rhea Ripley. Like, Rhea Ripley is it, man. Rhea Ripley is the one. And I don't think we need to rehash Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley, although I wouldn't mind it, quite frankly. They're both the biggest stars you could possibly have. But, you know, it's hard to picture exactly where all that's going to go. Maybe there will be. And, you know, you got to imagine, will AJ Lee be back for the Royal Rumble? Is AJ Lee going to be a part of WrestleMania? Maybe you're going to do AJ Lee versus Becky Lynch one-on-one at WrestleMania. Maybe you are going to leave the tag team championship on Rhea Ripley and Io Sky. And maybe you are going to find, you know, I wouldn't want it to maybe that's where you make Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss versus Rhea and Io, and you build this up as 4 of the top stars that the women's division has ever seen. I guess that's one direction you could go. I guess you could go to Liv versus Raquel. You could go to Jade versus Bianca. And if not, I mean, I guess you could bring Tiffany Stratton back for it. I mean, who else is in that thing? You know, I feel like it's got to be Bianca. I hope it's Bianca. And then maybe you do Alexa and Charlotte versus Rhea and Io. And you just really blow this match up as 4 of the best women that have ever existed. That might be the direction. And then also do Becky Lynch versus AJ Lee. That may be what WrestleMania looks like in terms of the women. And I actually, you know, I don't really mind any of that. Those are all big matches. But so you've got, and so that might be what you have. Rhea and Io winning, and it being the destruction and leading to what we're going to get with Liv and Roxanne. You've got Jacob Fatu versus Cody Rhodes, which is a biggie. Like, I don't want to see Cody lose twice. Cody doesn't lose a lot, and that's the way it should be. But I kind of feel like Cody's got to lose. You know, and maybe it's Drew gets involved. Maybe somehow something happens that is going to lead you into. I think Jacob's got to win because Cody, and then Jacob has to enter the Royal Rumble match. And then Cody is going after Jacob in the Rumble match. And I don't think Jacob's got to win clean. And Drew could get involved, or Roman could get involved, or any number of people could get involved. But I think Jacob's got to win, and Cody has to look to get revenge inside the Royal Rumble match. Like, Cody's already in there. And then Jacob's music hits, you know, several entrants later. And the camera shot goes to Cody Rhodes, who's now waiting for Jacob Fatu. And they go at it in the middle of the Royal Rumble match. I think, and I mean, if you're not going to have Jacob or Cody win that match, which you might have either one of them win, but if they're fighting each other, then you've got a built-in excuse where within that melee, they could both go over the top rope and keep fighting because they let their eye off the prize, something like that. And then you've got your fatal four-way where the winner will get the championship match at Royal Rumble. Trick Williams was able to beat Matt Cardona in a super competitive match. Matt didn't, come across looking like enhancement talent, but I think what I thought going in, which was it was a match about making Trick Williams look like a star. And they've done such a good job of that in only a few weeks on SmackDown. So I'm not surprised about that. Randy Orton, of course, beat The Miz. Not surprised about that. The Damian Priest Solo Sikoa match, man, you guys know what an advocate I am for Solo Sikoa. I loved the amount of offense that Solo got in. I loved how competitive it was. I loved that they're back to kind of showing Solo as being very dangerous in these matches, because I think as good as he is on the microphone, the longer he spends in velvet turtlenecks and blazers, the more we forget about the guy who put 16 Samoan spikes into John Cena's neck. And I think that these matches, and I think they did a good job of, in the John Cena tournament, all those matches that Solo was so dominant in, reminding us of that. And I think they did it here. Damian Priest won after the Wyatt 6 came out. And as I said last week, that's how I thought it would go down. I thought that the focus on the lantern would affect the victory for Solo Sikoa. I think that the MFTs really need to beat the Wyatt 6. And maybe they're trying to stretch this till WrestleMania. I don't know if they're going to put a bunch of them in the Rumble and have a thing happen. Maybe they're trying to make the big sort of multi-person match happen at WrestleMania. If that is the case, I'm a little worried that the Wyatts are going to win, because it feels like if you do the match at WrestleMania, the best thing you can do is have the big babyface thing happen. But I just don't know how the MFTs recover if the Wyatts beat them. And then Sami versus Ilya tore the house down. No surprise there. Sami Zayn won. As I said, may happen because of where we're going. I would have loved to have seen Ilya Dragunov win, but Sami Zayn won. I believe that Sami Zayn will win the four-way. I think between Trick, Randy Orton, Damian Priest, and Sami Zayn, I think Sami Zayn as the underdog wins the fatal four-way, and your match for the WWE Championship in Riyadh is Drew McIntyre versus Sami Zayn. And I think we have the one SmackDown that I think is in Riyadh, if I'm not mistaken, the night before the Rumble. So hopefully they will have a great face-to-face Sami Zayn, Drew McIntyre thing where you really believe in Sami Zayn. Because I think the Riyadh crowd cheering for Sami Zayn in this world title match will be as close to the Montreal crowd at Elimination Chamber in whatever year that was where he fought Roman that we've seen, 2023 maybe? It'll be as close to that Roman crowd as we've seen, which I think will be good. I don't think that Sami Zayn's going to win the match. I think Drew McIntyre holds on to the title. But I do think that Drew will come across as a villain. And I think that that's going to be important, is getting crowds to boo Drew McIntyre. Now, we saw this last year when they did international shows before WrestleMania. You didn't realize until you got back in front of an American crowd that Las Vegas was going to boo Cody Rhodes. Because remember, Las Vegas booed Cody Rhodes on that go-home SmackDown before Mania. Now, Cody got them back because Cody is so damn good. But they did boo him at first. And then they booed him in the stadium. And, and maybe that doesn't matter, depending on the story that's being told. Because I think there is this idea that, like, people enjoy Drew as champion, something new, that people feel like Drew has deserved it for a long time. Everybody loves Jacob Fatu. So there is this idea that Cody could get booed, but I don't know that it matters at this point. I think Cody is at the sort of babyface point where there are going to be moments in matches that he gets booed, and I don't think it matters. I think he's still going to be the number one merch seller. I think everybody's still going to buy tickets. I think everybody's still going to buy ESPN subscriptions or whatever metric you have. I think that as fans, sometimes we get caught up in what we see and what we hear because that's our job. But I also think that when you're looking at whether or not somebody should be in the position that they are in, you got to look at the metrics. There was one of the John Cena pieces that they played had this backstage footage, or maybe it was a doc I was watching. I don't know. I watched a lot of John Cena stuff at the end of last year, but it was during his run against The Rock. And it was at the point where everybody was booing him. And it was at the point where The Rock was calling him Fruity Pebbles and everything. I mean, it was a slog for John Cena. It was tough for him. But right at the peak of, like, we love The Rock, we hate John Cena, somebody came up to John and told him that, like, his merchandise numbers were eclipsing everyone else and everything that he had done before, that he was actually selling more merch at the arena than The Rock was. And John had this look on his face, like, oh, it was almost like this, like, eureka, aha type of moment, where it's like that crowd reaction is one part of the show. And it doesn't always mean what you think that it means. It a lot of times does mean that there's interest in this thing because of the amount of noise that is being made. So I think that that's something to keep in mind. And yeah, but Saturday night's main event looks like a big show. I'm assuming we'll get one more match added. I don't know. I doubt it'll be a World Heavyweight Championship match since CM Punk is defending against Finn Balor on Raw. But who knows? Maybe another women's match. Maybe they'll. I don't know. Maybe they'll settle whatever's going on between Stephanie Vaquer and Raquel Rodriguez at Saturday night's main event. Who knows? But when we talk about TV, it was a big week for wrestling on television. TNA premiered on AMC. Lots of conversation about this show. So let me get into the positives about this show. I will get into what I thought were positives and what I thought were negatives about the first show. This is TNA's biggest show, in my opinion, since they were on Spike TV. In terms of television shows, there is nothing bigger than them being on AMC since they were on Spike. AMC is a big network. Everybody has it. Everybody knows where to find it. Like, for all intents and purposes, TNA is back on regular television for the first time since Spike TV, in my mind. And I know you'll sit there and say Destination America. You'll sit there and say this channel or Access channel or whatever. I don't know. But in terms of, like, channels that people watch and have heard of, the channel that Breaking Bad was on, the channel that Better Call Saul was on, TNA being on that channel is a big deal. I thought that they created a great moment in the backstage between Frankie Kazarian and AJ Styles. AJ Styles looking at that title. The idea that AJ Styles' business in TNA may not actually be done. I thought that moment was terrific. It built Frankie Kazarian as well. It built that TNA championship. I thought, isolated from everything else, regardless of the pacing of the show, I thought it was a good thing that they aired packages that featured the history of TNA. In fact, like, those packages were based around the championships. And they also focused on newcomers, but I thought that, based on the fact that there's a lot of people watching that haven't watched either ever or in a very, very long time, highlighting TNA's history. TNA's history might be the greatest asset that TNA has. So showcasing the amount of people that have come through TNA and the amount of people who have had some of their best matches on TNA, I think is a very, very important thing. that TNA did, and I was glad that they did it. I was really happy to see The Righteous getting some television time to get pushed forward. I am a huge fan of The Righteous. I feel like other than the OG Ring of Honor, people tend to not quite know what to do with them. I feel like in modern AEW Ring of Honor, like they didn't know what to do with The Righteous. I just feel like there's such great characters and there's such a great team aesthetically. And like it's just and the fact that it's that like cult leader thing, but it's not the spooky scary cult leader. It's more the sort of like nefarious hippie cult leader. You know, the flowers in your hair, the Spawn Ranch, Charles Manson, peace and love, but in reality we have, you know, nefarious reasons for being. I love that. And I you know, every time I see The Righteous, my brain starts going crazy of like all the things that I would do with The Righteous if I was in charge of a promotion that they were working for. Like the way I would have them manipulate things and control things, maybe find people that weren't getting a fair shake. And you know, like the idea of like Vincent like sitting with somebody who was friends with somebody else, but this person was a low to mid card guy. And like they were just being cool. And maybe that person's main event friend was like, hey, what are you doing with that guy? So it comes across as the baby face is being controlling of his friend. So you go on this journey of like how somebody could get sucked in to an organization like The Righteous, and then seeing how it gets twisted and turned, the toxicity and the idea of people like now, like my favorite part about these movies, about these like cults that seem so great and then become something so bad, is that moment when your hero, when your protagonist is in this situation that he doesn't want to be in. But the reality is that he put himself there through a series of decisions, and now there's no way to get out. And I feel like The Righteous are characters that could tell that story over and over and over again. And I just love it. So I was happy about that. Really glad to see Santana get the TNA championship, and even more happy to see Santana retain it at the pay-per-view at Genesis and keep it moving. I thought that was really good, really important for TNA, and for TNA to now rally behind Santana as their guy. And he feels like a TNA guy. I thought that was very, very good. I thought that out of their control, because, you know, visa issues are visa issues. It's a part of doing business, I suppose. But it was a shame that they had visa issues. It was a shame that they lost Leon Slater. I mean, I was happy to see Leon Slater on SmackDown since they were in London. I was happy to see Leon Slater versus Carmelo Hayes. That match was incredible. But it was a shame that they advertised this X Division match, and one guy can't wrestle because of visa issues. And the other guy, I mean, you know, I think it's a problem that, like, you advertised a match and one of the participants' contract is up before the match happens and goes to AEW. That's not the best thing in the world. I thought that in terms of the stuff that I thought could have maybe been done a little better, I thought that there were production issues. I would have liked to have seen the show feel more like it was produced for AMC and not feel like it was produced the same way they've been producing television. You know, I think there's a big difference between producing television for your app and producing television for AMC. And I think that you want to send the message to the audience that this is a huge step forward for TNA. Because I think that that's good for the TNA brand, and I think that that's good for building loyalty behind TNA. If you want people to believe that you could theoretically be the number 2 promotion in the United States, then I think what you really want to do is make it feel like this move to AMC is as big as possible. And some of that is production quality, lighting, cameras, set, you know, the whole thing. Make it seem like, oh, now that we're on AMC, we have leveled up. Not, hey, here's the show we've been doing, now it's on AMC. I think that would have gone a long way. I mean, I'm an advocate for the 6-sided ring, but I don't have to work in it. I just think it differentiates them more. I think some of the moments, like, you know, man, when they showed the content creators, the influencers that they had invited, the Wheezy Blondes and whatnots of the world. I was really happy that they were there. I thought it was really smart that TNA invited them, that they embraced that group. I think that that's a spot where if TNA goes, no, we're the promotion that puts, the reaction content, interview content, influencers, the Muscle Man Malcolms and the Wheezy Blondes and the Salcedos and the Santis of the world. Like, if we're the promotion that puts them on a pedestal, I think it makes it feel like TNA is the promotion really for the fan. Like, it's a tangible thing that you can't get with some of the bigger promotions. And I think that that's really good and really smart. But if you're going to show them on camera, put them on the side of the building where all the people are. The idea of putting them on the side of the building where, like, there were like 2 rows in front of them where nobody was sitting, and then behind them it was hard cam side and there was nobody there. And so it's like, why wouldn't, even for the shot, just, you're going to shoot them, move them to the other side of the ring. That's why you've moved the audience over, so on the hard cam side there's all these people. If you're going to go to crowd shots, it should be on the same side where all the people are, no? And like, honestly, and it's weird because I'm not a big match guy. I don't need match after match after match. I'm a story guy. But if it's called total nonstop action, I think you need more than 3 matches. I was very surprised that they advertised 3 matches and they delivered 3 matches. I thought it was going to be 3 matches. These are the big matches, and then we'll have a whole bunch of other stuff. I think a lot more could have been done to introduce the product in terms of what you can expect match-wise that's different from other promotions. And I think that if you have more matches, you have more of an opportunity to introduce new eyeballs to new characters. And I'm sure that will get done over the weeks. But I do think that, like, this was your moment to go, hey, look at this promotion that you haven't seen before. Here's all the people that we have. Here's the type of matches that we have. Like, you could have done another, like, you do 6, 7 short matches and the main event. Even 4 short matches and then the main event. That's 5. That makes a big difference. And I think changes up the pacing of the show. And again, make the matches quick. Make the job of commentary to really be just explaining who these people are and why they're fighting. There were so many people that were on Genesis, for example, that I was like, I wish they had been on the TV show the night before or 2 nights before. And like, really, that way you can also really push towards the fact that there's a pay-per-view. I was very confused as to why they did the Nick Nemeth angle after the Santana match as a digital exclusive. I would have made the Santana Kaz match, a few minutes shorter, and then do the Nick Nemeth and the Sonya Deville and the Santino stuff. Do that all on television, because that's all good stuff. That's your cliffhanger that pushes right towards this pay-per-view. And by the way, you should watch the pay-per-view, but if you don't, we're going to let you know what happened next week right here on AMC. I think that you need stuff like that, But all told, I think it's a net positive. I think it's really good for us. I think the more wrestling promotions on television, the better. I think it's better for fans. I think it's better for wrestlers. I think it keeps everybody on their toes. And I'm anxiously awaiting what week 2 is going to look like. Because I actually already thought, in terms of visuals, the production looked better on, like, the lighting and everything looked better on Genesis than it did on the TV show. And that makes me wonder, like, oh, maybe they looked at it and said, oh, we can tweak this, we can tweak that, and maybe we'll see it. And I bet we will. That's TNA's whole thing, man, is that, even if they don't get it right 100% the first time, they're going to work and work and work. And I think we will see improvements progressively throughout as this television show matures. Speaking of television shows, a lot was made about Gunther tapping out to AJ Styles on Monday Night Raw. I didn't mind the finish at all. I think that, like, for some reason, after Gunther lost, or after John Cena lost to Gunther, people were waiting for this steamroller to just come be this monster heel that destroys everybody. And that's not Gunther. That hasn't ever been Gunther. Gunther is a different type of heel. Gunther is a unique heel. Gunther does not fit into the box that I think people are, for some reason, insistent on fitting him into. Go back and look at Gunther matches. Look at Gunther matches that he wins. Gunther takes a ton of offense in those matches. Yes, he will win, but he gets beaten up in the matches that he's in. I mean, people said this too. It's like, they were like, oh, shouldn't he have had an easier time with Pat McAfee? No. Pat McAfee is an athlete, and this is what a Gunther match looks like. Gunther gets beaten up a lot in Gunther matches, but he wins anyway. That's what makes Gunther scary, is that he gets beaten up a lot, but he also hits hard, and he's the one that inevitably wins. And it's like, no matter what you do to this guy, he's still going to knock the stuffing out of you, and he's still going to win the match. That's Gunther. And so I think the idea that he tapped out to AJ Styles, I think that from a babyface perspective, you could sit there and go, well, he tapped out. That's, now we know he couldn't tap out. But from a heel perspective, Wade Barrett on commentary spelled it out perfectly. Gunther tapping out on the side that the referee wasn't looking is a pure and utter tactic. It's a tactic done by somebody who studies the game, who thinks the mat is sacred, who studies pro wrestling and comes to the ring to win matches, and that's it. The mistake that was made in that match was AJ Styles releasing the hold before the referee told him to. I mean, they say that on MMA commentary. Anybody that you don't release the hold when your opponent taps. The referee sees that the opponent taps, and then the referee or official tells you to release the hold. That's how tap outs work. So AJ Styles made a mistake that Gunther choreographed, or that Gunther saw coming, I should say. And then Gunther took advantage of it with the low blow and the power bomb. Gunther beats AJ Styles. But there was nothing about the way that Gunther won that match that was not typical to Gunther. I mean, that wasn't sort of that wasn't anything different than what we would normally see from Gunther. Gunther is really good at beating people in a way that looks dominant without killing them. And we don't see that very often. But Gunther figures out a way to win almost every single match that he's in. But he generally doesn't kill the people that he's in the ring with unless it's their retirement match and they need to be killed for the sake of the story. So I really didn't have a problem with it at all. A couple of things I want to mention before we get to emails. Number one, Hobbs, Powerhouse Hobbs, lots of rumors about him coming over to WWE. I hope that it's true. I've been a fan of Powerhouse Hobbs for a long time. First of all, I love people switching rosters. I think that that's a lot of fun for fans. I think that it keeps everything fresh. It keeps everybody on their toes. It gives everybody every opportunity imaginable. But I also have been a huge fan of Powerhouse Hobbs for a very, very, very long time. I think he can be a tremendous asset. I could see him going to NXT first, but I love the idea of him going right to the main roster. I already want to see him matched up with Braun Breaker. I want to see him matched up with Bronson Reed. This could be a scenario where he joins the Vision. This could be a scenario where the Vision tries to court him, but he doesn't join them, and he becomes a babyface instead. Could be a scenario where he goes over to SmackDown, and now he's rivals with Jacob Fatu. It's just like there's a lot you could do with him. And for me, he's a different type of monster because he is that, and he is a powerhouse, and he will destroy people, but he's also got such an incredible story. He's an incredible person with an incredible story, which is why I kind of lean more towards making him a babyface, because I think his story and where he came from and what he overcame to get here should be a part of his character, and a big part of his character. I think there is a lot to be gained from telling that full Hobbs story. And if he is coming to WWE, I would love to see it. There are rumors about him having a name change and everything, which I think is fine. A lot of people have name changes before they get there, and it's not like Powerhouse Hobbs. His name is Hobbs. He's a powerhouse. As long as you don't call him, the gobbledygooker, I think we'll be fine. Speaking of names too, At Genesis, we were talking about TNA. We saw the retirement of Fandango. He had his final match against Eddie Edwards at Genesis. Great match. Hard to believe that Fandango has decided to hang up the boots. I don't know why he would. He looks like he's in great shape. I seen on Instagram that he builds houses. He seems like he's very good at building houses as well. But I mean, Fandango, it's really interesting. Fandango is just such a great example of one of those characters that is so bizarre and so like, what are we even doing? But ends up being a forever character. You know, in the beginning of whatever year it was that WrestleMania 29 was in, Fandango showing up. You know, first there were the vignettes for Fandango. And it was all based on, I think, like, you know, Vince McMahon seeing Dancing with the Stars or something like that and wanting a dancing wrestler. So Johnny Curtis, as we had known him on like NXT or whatever, goes out and gets ballroom dancing lessons, comes back as Fandango. We see the vignettes, then it's time for Fandango to debut. And when I say Fandango, what I really mean is Fandango. And every time he'd come out and his music would play, ba-da, 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 ba. And everybody, and now all of a sudden, people were like, wait, this is so weird and so different and so funny that I think I'm enjoying it. And he would come out and he would refuse to wrestle. He would refuse to go to the ring because they didn't say his name right. Fandango. They didn't say it right. So he refused to wrestle. He finally had his first match at WrestleMania 29 against Chris Jericho. And he beat Chris Jericho at WrestleMania 29, which was insane. By the way, the year before at WrestleMania 28, Chris Jericho was fighting for the WWE Championship. Chris Jericho loses to Fandango in order to get this Fandango over. The Raw after WrestleMania, everybody's going crazy with their fingers in the air. Ba-da, ba, ba, ba-da, ba-da, ba-da. I wish he would come back to WWE just for one of those moments again. Like, not for a run, for a night. Especially for, like, on a European show or a Raw after WrestleMania, just to say goodbye. It would be massive. I mean, it was funny because, like, after he wrestled, like, once he beat Jericho, that was kind of it, right? That was, like, the peak, because it was, like, the whole gimmick was, I'm a dancer and I'm not wrestling unless you say my name right. So once he wrestled, it was like, I mean, he's a good wrestler, but it was almost like, okay, we did it. And, you know, he was around for a while, and then he was able to kind of reinvent himself with the Fashion Police and Breezango. He started teaming with Tyler Breeze, who, again, is a great gimmick that for whatever reason, after the very sort of beginning of it on the main roster, they could never fully realize. But, I mean, Fandango and Tyler Breeze are two of the best gimmicks ever. And they end up teaming up, and at first they're the Fashion Police, and they're doing those, like, Law and Order type vignettes on SmackDown, which were super entertaining. They end up, you know, going to NXT and just dressing up in different outfits, kind of looking like, you know, kind of male entertainers, if you will, every single week, whether they're in cop outfits or sailor outfits or whatever. I remember, I believe it was the NXT, it was the Stand and Deliver at the Performance Center before WrestleMania 36, before the pandemic WrestleMania, because I was out there for it, I believe. I just remember that, I think so. Because, yeah. No, it was before 37. No. It was the Stand and Deliver that was at the Performance Center, but it was before WrestleMania 37. So it was still empty building, but it was right before they were going back to the first building with fans again. Yes, it was the Stand and Deliver before WrestleMania 37. And I remember being there for the pre-show for it. And Breezango were wrestling on it. And I think they hadn't wrestled in a while or something. And they were dressed up as pirates, which I thought was the theme because WrestleMania was going to be in Tampa, even though NXT was in Orlando. But I was like, hey, I was glad to see you guys were back. And Fandango told me, he was like, yeah. He was like, they called us and asked if we would do it. And we agreed on one condition. And I was like, oh, was it a money thing? And he said, no. We said, we'll only do it if we can dress up like pirates. And they said, no problem. But man, I mean, definitely anybody that was watching wrestling around that period of time just a hugely memorable force in the world of sports entertainment. And I do hope that we get one more appearance in a WWE ring from Fandango. And by the way, before we get to emails, watch AAA this weekend. AAA over the weekend. Grande Americano going babyface. Omos, and I don't know if this means Grande is going to be a babyface on WWE television or if this is just a AAA thing, but Omos and Vikingo were attacking Grande Americano, and Rey Mysterio, of all people, comes out and makes the save. We may be in AAA. You got to watch this AAA show. It's really entertaining. We may be in AAA heading towards a Rey Mysterio Grande Americano tag team against Omos and Vikingo, which if you had told me that a year ago, I would have said you were crazy. And yet here we are, and it's all great stuff. If you want to email in notsamwrestling@gmail.com, notsamwrestling@gmail.com. You can be a part of the show. Let's go to Toby, who writes in to notsamwrestling@gmail.com. Sam, we are days away from the release of Unreal Season 2, and months ago we had many conversations about why and if this show is a good thing to be shown. My question now is, does your opinion change for children? We can all appreciate wrestling for what it is as adults, but when you look at it from a kid's perspective, I think the look behind the curtain could be confusing and disappointing and seems unnecessary. I'm curious, do you let your kids watch Unreal, and what is their reaction to it? Thanks. Okay, great question, Toby. Number one, I don't like unnecessary. You don't make no television show is necessary. Wrestling is not necessary. You don't make television shows because they're necessary. I feel the same way about unnecessary that I do when people go, well, this match doesn't need the title. No, nothing needs anything. But you make it because there's a value to it. Like I said, I've seen Unreal Season 2. I'll have the review up on Tuesday once everybody else has a chance to see it. It's not a kid's show to begin with. There's cursing all over it. And there was cursing all over season 1. Like, if you want to let your kids watch it, that's fine. But it's I don't think that at any point it's a documentary for adults to watch. They don't make it kid, like, there's cursing all over it. There's no cartoons. It's reality based. It's not like storyline based at all. So I don't think that there's an obligation to make it kid friendly. And if you choose to let your kids watch, you can. But like, it's telling you what it is. This is a look behind the curtain. If you want to show your kids a look behind the curtain, that's fine. And I did, just to see how it would go, let my son, who's 8, watch some of the show. And like, without giving anything away, like, he really enjoyed what he watched. You know, I mean, listen, I remember when I was 8 years old, I went to my first, and this is kind of why I did it, but when I was 8, I went to my first live WWE show. It was SummerSlam 92. My family was living in England at the time, and my dad got us tickets to SummerSlam 92. It was the first live wrestling show that I ever went to. And my parents told me later that there was a big concern that they thought, because we were sitting on the floor, we weren't in the front row or anything, but we were sitting on the floor. Decent seats, good seats, amazing. And they were like, when he sees this up close, he's going to see what it really is. He's going to see that they're not making full contact. He's going to see the cooperation that's involved. He's going to see that this is not, you know, mano physical combat. And they said, but we got it. I mean, we can't hide that. If he's going to be a fan, and as he gets older, he's going to be a fan. Like that, you can't not take him to shows. You can't not. So they took me to the show. And not only did it not ruin it for me, it didn't even occur to me. I wasn't watching the show because I wanted to see this sort of competition to see who's the better man. I was watching the show for the stories. And regardless of how they executed the storytelling, I remained unaffected by it completely. And the more of a peek behind the curtain that I got, and I can only speak for myself, I'm a weird guy. I was a weird kid. But the only response that I had to finding out more and more and more about wrestling was to want to find out more and more and more. And I liked it more and more and more. You know, I when I talk to my kids about it, I'm like, listen, they are telling stories. There is a performance and a storytelling thing that happens here. However, did you just see Cody jump off that vomitorium through the table onto Drew McIntyre? That is what it is. There ain't no fake in that. It's a complicated thing. It's a nuanced thing. But no, I mean, listen, I'm not gonna let my kids watch full seasons of Unreal because it's full of adult themes and cursing. I don't need my kids to watch shows about contract negotiations. I don't think my kids want to watch shows about contract negotiations. But, if there is stuff on there that I find interesting that I think that they will appreciate, yeah. And what my kids saw, and I'll get more into it when I do the show about Unreal, what my kids saw, I mean, he was glued to the screen. And to get him glued to a television set instead of an iPad takes a lot. So, you can take it for what it's worth. Mark writing in, my PTC and wise man on all things wrestling. Hope all is well. I was wondering, with the influx of new talent coming to the main roster, if you foresee any new factions forming. You've probably answered this already, but what do you think about Powerhouse Hobbs joining WWE? I don't know. I mean, I don't think in terms of factions, you could have more factions. Factions are not a bad thing at all. But I don't look at that and go, oh, they're going to need some factions with all this new talent. I mean, they have a lot of hours of TV to fill. So I don't think they need factions. But if naturally a new faction kind of sprouts from all this talent coming in, that wouldn't be a bad thing at all. I like factions. Austin writes in, what? Sam, I acknowledge you, my OPTC. I have loved watching the U.S. Championship Open Challenge matches and how it has been passed down through several champions. However, eventually a heel is going to win and end the challenge, right? I would imagine. And I know the perfect man to do it. Kit Wilson. He can end the toxic masculinity of these United States Open challenges with these champions thinking that they're so masculine they can beat someone every week, when in reality, no one has been champion for more than 2 months since the challenges started. Kit Wilson can claim that he will end toxic. I like that. I don't mind it. Kit, I don't think he's going to win the United States Championship immediately. But as that character builds in popularity, yeah, I think he's got a perfectly built-in. He would say that the U.S. Open Challenge is a toxic thing. He would absolutely say that. Joe writes in, hope all is well. Feels like this year's Rumble really hasn't had a proper build. Okay, minimal declaration. But do you think the road to WrestleMania will make up for it? I don't. I think the idea of saying the Royal Rumble has not had a proper build when we're still 2 weeks away is a little bit unfair. You know what I mean? I think that by the time we get to the Royal Rumble, we'll know how we feel about the Royal Rumble. This week alone, you have not counting NXT, you have 5.5 hours of television this week on just Raw and SmackDown. Then you have another 5.5 hours of television on just Raw and SmackDown. Now, it is worth pointing out that nobody except Cody Rhodes has declared. But I wouldn't go so far as to now be like, there hasn't been a proper build for the Rumble. It's like, well, okay, we're not at the Rumble yet. So let's just wait and see how we get there. It would have been a really difficult thing to have a proper build for the Rumble before Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre match had happened, right? That changed everything. Before the Braun Breaker CM Punk match had happened, And so now that I think that we're settling into what the beginning of this year looks like, now we get on the road to the Rumble, which we get on the road to WrestleMania. Chris writes, we got to be patient as wrestling fans, especially in this era. This era more than most. It feels like patience is a virtue. Chris writes in, my OPTC sending regards all the way from Ayr, Scotland. My man, appreciate that. Myself and my 2 kids finally got our Sam figure. That's fantastic. You go to notsam.com for the link for the Amazon stuff on there. After a slow build to the Rumble with apart from Cody announcing he's in the Rumble, would you have as a surprise entry Diesel spot? Who would you have? As a surprise entry Diesel spot and winner of the Rumble. Keep up the good work, as always, listening to the podcast. Again, I think we've got plenty of time for people. Like, my pitch, and I don't remember if I said this on the podcast. I said this on the radio show for sure. Well, I couldn't have said it on the radio show because we haven't met since then. I think that, like, so after what happened between Braun Breaker and Adam Pearce and that whole back and forth where Braun Breaker just puts his hands on Adam Pearce, and Adam Pearce gets so mad he's dropping loogies in his goatee. He's furious. He's fuming, and neck's in his vein. And I mean, Adam Pearce was phenomenal in that segment, by the way. Adam Pearce was great. Braun Breaker was great. Logan Paul saying, you don't want to make him that mad. Austin Theory going, chill. Like, everybody, the whole thing was great. And then at the very end, when he throws out Braun Breaker and he says, you've been suspended indefinitely. And everybody's like, oh my God, what's going on now? And Paul Heyman says, that was the biggest mistake. And Adam Pearce says, I know. And Paul Heyman says, no, yours. And he said, how is it my mistake? He put his hands on me. And Paul Heyman says, well, from my vantage point, you put your hands on a WWE superstar first. I went, oh my God. So I don't think Braun Breaker is suspended indefinitely, because I think that not only will Adam Pearce's suspension not hold up, but I think Adam Pearce is in trouble for putting his hands on a superstar. So I think the first thing that you do is you have Paul Heyman say, okay, you want to make good on this. The entire vision needs to be in the Royal Rumble. Logan Paul, Austin Theory, Bronson Reed, and Braun Breaker. I think that that's how you get the entire vision declaring for the Rumble. Adam Pearce owes them. Braun's not suspended, and now all four of them can work together in this Rumble match. But right there, you now have big chunks of the people in that Rumble being named. And that's exactly how I would do it. But I think that I still have Braun Breaker winning the thing. And for the Diesel spot, I think Oba. I think Oba would be a good Diesel spot. And I don't know if you debut Oba at the Rumble or the night before or whatever. I think Oba's in that Diesel spot. Avik writes in, all I am saying is I can't wait for Kit Wilson's Royal Rumble entrance. Which number would you slot him in? 22, somewhere around there. You know, I want him to have a great entrance, but the ring to be pretty full of pretty badass dudes, because he's going to get his ass kicked once he gets in there, but the entrance is going to be incredible. All right. Last email. This is coming from Eric. I acknowledge you, my OPTC. I appreciate that. You're right that Roman versus Cody 3 does need the belt. It doesn't need or not need the belt, but the belt does add to it. You can do it either way, but the belt does add to it. But the way things are now, it would be a babyface match, which is never ideal. I mean, not really. You got Cody versus Roman. It's not just some random babyface versus another random babyface. There's a real story to be told there. So I disagree with that too. It needs a twist to make it truly generational. That twist would be with a heel Cody and a face Roman to do it right. It shouldn't happen this year. I don't think you need Cody to turn heel for this. I'm looking for Drew Cody double turn at Mania with Cody winning the title and having a reign of terror next year. That's I don't know. Cody maybe even form a faction and taking over the Vision with Braun Breaker. All right, I'm going to do another email. It's too much. It's ridiculous. Okay, Micah is writing in. Happy late anniversary or happy late New Year. It is late to you, and thanks for a great 2025. This new year has me excited with Drew finally being the champ. I know you'd like Cody to be champ again by Mania, but I would love to see Roman Drew main event for the WWE title at WrestleMania. Now that is interesting. Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre. If you did, I would not mind at all. Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre for the title, and Cody Rhodes versus Jacob Fatu. And then Cody Rhodes has to try to get that title, and then Roman beats Drew again. And then Cody Rhodes has to get the title from Roman. I like that. Drew's character right now is a huge hypocrite, so although he may be mad at all the ways Roman used to screw him over in the past, now that he's the champ, I feel like he would do those exact same things to keep the title. Yeah, I mean, he literally won the title due to interference from a member of the bloodline. So you're 100% right. I'm probably hyping it up a little too much in my head, but I think it could be great if they were to do it right. Either way, I'm excited for the possibilities leading up to WrestleMania this year. Have a great one. No, I like that. I really like that. I love Roman versus Drew, Cody versus Jacob, Punk versus Rollins versus Braun. And then my women's matches I put together. I like all of that. If you got an idea, email in notsamwrestling@gmail.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/notsamwrestling. Subscribe to the podcast everywhere you get podcasts, SiriusXM app, Apple, Spotify. We're also doing the video on Spotify now. So however you want to get this show, but make sure that you get it all the time. And we'll be back tomorrow with a conversation about season 2 of WWE Unreal. Have a good one, everybody.